and 82 years old. I say that slowly now, not because it's hard to remember, but because it still doesn't quite feel like it belongs to me. 82 sounds like someone else, someone older than the person I still feel like inside. But the calendar doesn't ask how you feel. It just keeps moving. This morning I stood in the doorway of my living room and listened. I don't know why. I just did. I think I was expecting to hear something. A voice. The television already on. Something to tell me the day had started without me noticing. There was nothing. Just the hum of the heater and the faint sound of a car passing somewhere outside. The room looked the same as it always does. Couch, chair, a stack of old magazines I never quite get around to throwing away. Everything in its place. Too much in its place, maybe. I've learned that loneliness doesn't arrive the way people imagine. It doesn't knock. It doesn't make a scene. It doesn't show up all at once. It settles in quietly, like dust, collecting in corners you stop checking. And the loneliest part of my life didn't come when people started leaving. It came after they were already gone. When I was younger, I thought loneliness meant being alone, physically alone, an empty house, no one to talk to. I didn't understand that you can be surrounded by people and still be lonely, and that you can also be alone without feeling it at all. For a long time I wasn't lonely. Not really. My life was full in the ways that matter when you're busy. A wife, children, work, neighbors, commitments, noise. Always noise. There's always someone calling my name. Always someone who needed something. Always somewhere to be. I remember complaining about it once, telling my wife I just wanted a little peace and quiet. She laughed and said, "You'll get plenty of that someday." At the time it sounded like a joke. Now it sounds like something closer to a warning. Back then, the house never stayed quiet for long. Doors opening and closing. Television playing in the background. Kids arguing about nothing. Someone always looking for something they had misplaced. I moved through it all without thinking much about it. It was just life. Ordinary, predictable, exhausting in a way I thought I'd be glad to escape someday. I didn't know how much of myself was tied to that noise. When the kids grew up and moved out, the house changed. Not suddenly. Gradually, their rooms became storage. Their laughter faded into memories I didn't revisit often. Phone calls replaced conversations. Holidays replaced daily life. I told myself that was how I was supposed to go. Children grow up. Parents adjust. Everyone moves forward. I didn't feel lonely then. I felt relieved, maybe. A little proud, like I'd done my job. My wife and I settled into a quieter rhythm. Mornings with coffee. Evenings with the television low. Conversations that didn't need much explanation, because we'd lived so much of the same life. That kind of companionship is easy to take for granted because it doesn't ask much of you. It just exists. I didn't realize how much it filled the space until it wasn't there anymore. When she died, people were around at first. Family, friends, neighbors, people bringing food I didn't have an appetite for. People sitting with me, telling stories, reminding me I wasn't alone. And they were right. I wasn't alone then, but people have lives. They go back to them. The visits slow down. The calls become less frequent, not out of cruelty, out of momentum. Life keeps going for everyone else. Eventually, the house emptied again, not just of people, but of expectation. No one was coming by later. No one was waiting for me to show up somewhere. The days stretched out, wide and quiet. That's when loneliness started to change shape. It wasn't the silence itself that hurt. It was what the silence revealed. I'd sit in my chair and realize there was no one left who knew the full version of me. No one who remembered me at 30, yes, or 40, or 50. No one who had shared all the small, meaningless moments that make a life feel real. My children love me. I know that. They call. They visit when they can. But they know me as an old man now, a father, a grandfather, not as the man who stayed up late worrying about bills, not as the husband who made mistakes and tried again the next day, not as the younger version who still thought he had time to figure things out. There's a kind of loneliness in that, being known only in fragments. I had a friend named Arthur. We worked together for years, ate lunch at the same place almost every day, same booth, same waitress. We talked about everything and nothing. Politics we didn't understand, sports we barely followed, our kids, our complaints. When he retired, we promised we'd keep in touch. And we did for a while. Coffee once a week, then once a month, then holidays. One winter I realized I hadn't heard from him in a long time. I thought about calling. I always thought about calling. But days went by, then weeks, then months. I told myself I didn't want to bother him. I found out later he'd passed away. I didn't remember the exact moment I heard the news. I just remember the feeling afterward. Not shock, not even grief. The way people describe it, just a hollow sense of something quietly closing. Another door shut, without a sound. That's the thing about loneliness at this age. It's cumulative. It builds as people leave, one by one. Until one day, you realize you're the only one left in a room that used to be crowded. I think we get this wrong when we're younger. We think loneliness is about being unwanted, or unloved, or forgotten. But the loneliest part, at least for me, came after everyone left, because there was no one left to witness the smaller moments. No one to share the unimportant things with. And it turns out those are the things that matter most, when everything else has already been said. I'll go entire days now without speaking out loud, not because I have nothing to say, but because there's no one there to say it to. I catch myself narrating small actions in my head, commenting on the weather, reacting to something on the news, all silently. Sometimes I speak just to hear my own voice, to make sure it's still there. When people do visit, the conversations are polite, careful. Everyone is aware of time, of schedules, of how long they can stay. I don't blame them. I did the same thing when I was their age. I just didn't notice how it felt on the other side. They ask how I'm doing. I say I'm fine, because that's easier than explaining something that doesn't have a clean explanation, because loneliness isn't dramatic. It doesn't come with a story people can respond to. It's just the absence of presence. At night, the house feels bigger. Rooms echo in ways they never used to. I turn on lamps I don't really need, just to push back the shadows a little. I leave the television on sometimes, not because I'm watching it, but because the sound reminds me of what it used to be like when someone else was there. I remember evenings when my wife and I would sit without talking, both doing our own things. I never thought of that as connection. That connection had to be active. Now I understand that simply sharing space is its own kind of intimacy. It took me a long time to understand that. There are moments when the loneliness catches me off guard, standing in the grocery store, looking at something trivial, and realizing no one will ever comment on my choices again. No one to laugh with over something small. No one to complain to about prices or bad lighting or the music playing overhead. Those were things I once found irritating. Now they feel like reminders of a life that moved on without me. I don't sit around feeling sorry for myself. That's not what this is. I've lived a long life, a full one in many ways. I've known love. I've been needed. I've mattered to people. But there's a difference between knowing those things happened and feeling them now. The loneliest part came after everyone left, because that's when I realized how much of my identity was tied to being seen in ordinary ways. Being asked about my day, being interrupted, being part of someone else's routine. When those things disappear, you start to feel less solid, like you're slowly becoming a memory yourself. Think about all the times I wanted to be left alone when I was younger. All of the times I closed doors, mentally or physically, because I was tired or busy or preoccupied. I didn't understand that connection doesn't announce its importance. It just shows up day after day, asking quietly to be noticed. I don't say this with regret so much as clarity. Regret, as I think I could have fixed it all. I don't believe that. Life moves in one direction. People leave. That's unavoidable. What I didn't see was how empty the space afterward could feel. There are mornings now when I wake up and for a brief moment forget where I am in my life. For just a second I expect to hear movement in the house, a voice. Then the realization settles in, gently, like it always does. I get up anyway, make coffee, sit by the window. Watch the day begin without me needing to participate in it. Time feels different now, slower but also thinner, like there's less of it to work with. That awareness sharpens everything. I don't know how many years I have left. I don't think about that in numbers. I think about it in seasons, in mornings like this, quiet afternoons, in how often the phone rings. The loneliest part didn't come with loss itself. It came afterward, in the long stretch of living that follows, when the world has already moved on. I've learned to sit with it, not fight it, not distract myself too much. Loneliness has something to say if you listen long enough. It tells you what mattered. It tells you who mattered. Tells you what filled the space before it arrived. I'm 82 years old. I don't need much now, just moments that feel real. Even quiet ones, even lonely ones, because at least they remind me I'm still here.